Hello, this is Darren Pearson from darrenscorner.com, and this is part 3 of our video tutorial series in creating a web-based trivia game. To start with, again, as always, navigate to darrenscorner.com, click on the tutorial section, and go down to, in this case, part 3. And we can see this, we're going to do the creation of the credits scene in this section. Click the instructional files right there, and we should get part3.zip that we can download. Now I've downloaded and extracted that already. It contains 4 files: part3 start.hype, triviainfo.js, the background image, and part3 elements.txt. So I'm going to click on part3 start.hype, and this pops up. So this is where we should have been at the end of part 2. We can see that we have our splash scene and our main scene. Notice a couple different things. We can configure this. We can kind of hide their scenes or expand them. We can even turn the inspector off if we need to, but I keep it open most of the time. And we haven't done any animating in the timeline yet, but we can see here are all the different elements that we have. So like when I click border 1, we can see this rectangle gets highlighted, and here's answer A display, something like that. And then below we have some properties. It shows 5 by default. Later on we'll start animating others. And pretty much these are all CSS properties. So if you're familiar with CSS, we have things like bold, border color, brightness. They're alphabetical here, so you can kind of see what they look like. So I'm going to bring this down a bit. There we go. And we've got our 2 scenes here. We're going to create the credits scene. So we're going to do what we did before. We'll just copy the splash scene and create credits, and we can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, only 5 elements, so not as many as we had in the previous one that we have right there. So we can see, kind of take a look, see what that looks like. And should work out pretty well. Now, in case you're interested as far as game flow goes here, we're going to start with the splash scene. That should be the first one. Eventually, we'll click the start button and we'll load this scene. Now, we've kept it very generic. We're going to be using JavaScript to change the inner HTML of this to show our first question and our first set of 5 answers. 1 will be right, the 4 others are wrong. And we'll animate the timeline bar, and eventually the person clicks, we figure out their score, show a response, and then at the end of that, we're either going to reload this scene and put in, if it was question 1, and then move on to question 2, or if we're at the very end, we're going to jump to the credits scene, which is what we're going to create right now. So again, I'm going to start by expanding the scenes. If this is collapsed, expand it up, just like that. And I'll select the splash, say scene, duplicate scene, and call it credits. And I'll need to move it below the main. So let me do that over here. Splash is selected, scene, duplicate scene. It's called splash copy. I can just drag it down there, and I'll click on it. I'm just going to call it credits. There we go. That looks good. Names are really important. This is lowercase credits. Eventually, we're going to, when we make our decision, when we get to the last question, jump to this page. But we'll go in and we'll delete. We'll keep the background image, but I'm just going to hold down Shift and select Title 1. By the way, I can click it there, or I can click right here to select things, which is kind of handy. So I'll just select all 3 of them and say Edit, Delete. There we go. And we'll start building. So we can see we're going to create 2 text elements, 2 buttons, and 1 more text element. So let's get started. Element, text. Click on the pencil icon. We're going to say finished! Exclamation mark. Click on it, go into our typography. We've been using Arial Black. I like that one. Size, scroll down a ways here, 96. So it's huge. Yellow. And it has a nice background, nice contrast, and make sure it's centered. Go into our metrics and put this at left equals 0, top equals 50, width is 1024, height is 150, and I'm going to give this thing the unique ID message 1. Again, we'll be using getElementById to change some of these things. I don't think we'll be changing this one, but this has to be unique throughout the whole project, not just this scene, but we can't use the word message1 as a unique element ID in other scenes. Otherwise, we'll end up getting conflicts. So there we go. I'm going to select this, edit, copy. Oops, what did I do there? I think I accidentally deleted it. Edit, copy, edit, paste. There it is. Bring this down, and this is going to be a little bit smaller. Again, it's Arial black, but it's going to be size 48, yellow and centered. And we're going to click and change the inner HTML to this. I'm just going to copy that. Click the pencil icon. Paste this in. You scored XXXX points out of a total of YYY. Overall result, ZZ%. Obviously, that's going to change. Let's go into our metrics. Left equals 0, top equals 200, width is 1024, height should be 220 to fit all that in. And this one's unique ID is message2. There we go. So we're going to tell the person how many points did they score, what was the overall percentage. We'll play around with that. Next, we're going to put in 2 buttons. So we're going to give them options. They can either play the game again or go and look at, I put a link back to my website to show some of the other games that we have. So the button, I'm going to click on it and just ask them, play again, question mark. And let's see here, element, fill style, none. We can see through it. Border is 15 pixels with a radius of 25 and should be yellow. There we go. And let's change the hover color so when they hover over, the border color is red. Click back to normal to see that. So again, we can quickly preview what this is going to look like in its different states that we have right there. Positioning, this thing goes at left equals 100, top equals 500, width is 360, height is 90. For the type, again, Arial black, that looks good. 36, let's make it yellow. And, oops, should be centered, yep, centered by default. Change the hover color, make sure the text color is red as well. That looks good. Unique ID, oops, select it, unique ID. We're going to call this the again button. And eventually, we won't do it in this part, but we'll see when we click on this, we'll jump back to the splash scene to load this again, and they can play the game again. That looks good. I'm going to just select it and do edit, copy, edit, paste, and move this over here and change a few things. The nice thing, it copies the hover state. I'm first going to change the inner HTML. Instead of play again, I'm just going to say more games. I chose all uppercase here. That we have this. Again, if we look at the elements, since I copied everything, fill style none, width, border width 15, border radius 25, yellow, hover state red. The metrics, let's just double check. This should be at left equals 560. Top is 500, width is 360, height is 90. Typography, Arial black, size 36. Normal state yellow, hover state red. Oops. I should have done that back in the normal state, my bad. Left equals 560. There we go. So now the normal and the hover. Ugh. Days like this. That should be 560 in the hover state. Crap, I think we're just going to do edit delete. And copy this again. Yeah, that doesn't move. Edit copy, edit paste, move this over, and put it at left equals 560. There we go. So let's just double check element. Everything's good. All the same there. Got our hover state, that's good. Metrics, 560, 500, 360, 90. Typography, Arial black, 36, yellow centered, red hover state. And then for unique ID, I'm just going to call this the More button, because we're saying More button. Oh, and I haven't changed the inner HTML yet. So I double click on it, hit the pencil icon, and I'll just say More games. There we go. Bingo. Okay, last thing, I want to put a link back to my website. I'd appreciate if you keep this in yours. So I'm just going to select this, edit copy, edit paste, bring it down here. Double click, and I'm going to put an actual link in here. Game tutorial available at, and then I put in an anchor tag, so it brings you back to darrenscorner.com. That's the inner HTML, so I'm going to copy that, go into my text, double click it, hit the pencil icon, get rid of all that, paste that in. Yeah, the spaces really don't matter, but I just have the break right there. That looks good. Game tutorial available at darrenscorner.com. There we go. And again, let's select it. Typography, Arial black. I think we'll squeeze it down to 36. Second there. Yellow. Something like that. Centered. Yellow and centered. Positioning, left is 0, top is, push it down to 620, 1024, height only needs to be 140. There we go, that looks pretty good. And the unique ID, I'm just going to call this message 3, MESSAGE 3. There we go. So, it's working. We haven't added any functionality. That'll be added in steps 4 and 5. But again, let's do a quick file save. And if we want to preview this, again, I prefer Chrome. Again, it only shows the first scene. But if I just click right here and say preview current scene in browser, there we go. So you can see what that looks like. And our hover states work. Also, when I click there, woohoo, brings us back to darrenscorner.com. So, things are good. Thank you so much, and we'll move on to part 4.